Being continued. We spent a lot of time on the last one, so let's get into it quickly. So, we began here, and we were talking about the creation of the heavens and the earth, as recorded in the book of Genesis. Now, I want to make a couple of points before we begin. An important one to remember, as Solomon clearly knew, is that all things are under the sun. So up is towards the sun, towards the light; down is away from the sun, towards the darkness. Okay? Oh, and a very important point which we're going to come across again and again is the right hand and the left hand. The right hand for most people is the strong hand, the good hand, and the left hand for most people is the weak hand, the evil hand, the useless hand. So people can write with the right hand, not with the left hand. They can do things with the right hand, not with the left hand. So the right hand is the strong hand, and the left hand is the weak hand, the evil. Right is good, left is evil. Remember, that's going to come back again and again. So we were here, and we got to the end. We began here, and we went around, and we got to the end of creation, and then history begins here. But one thing we have to remember is that at this point here, day 4, all the sun, the moon, the stars, planets, everything was created on that day. So remember, this story is from the sun, the moon, the stars and the planets. So on that day, that's when the story begins, the written story. Now notice that as history goes around the days of creation, once we get to day 4 and the sun is created, at some point during day 4, the sun is created here in Leo, the house of the sun, because these 12 constellations, these are called the zodiac constellations. It's called Mazzaroth in the Bible. The 12 constellations are the zodiac, and they are houses, because each of the constellations covers an area of sky, and the planets go, the sun and the planets and the moon once a month, goes through these houses, visiting these houses, but they each live in one of the houses. And an important point to remember is that all these planets are up in the sky except for the Earth, and the Earth is in the house of Virgo. So the house of Virgo is empty. She is undefiled and free to marry the king, Leo. And another important point. Just reading something there, sorry. Another important point. The gas giants. Just make a bit, give a bit more information about the gas giants. You'll notice, of course, all these line up together. The 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth. The 12 constellations and the 12 groups of planets. And Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are the same colour as the 4 elements: fire, air, water and earth. You'll notice, sorry, they go in a different order, sorry. Fire, air, water and earth, sorry. I'm not paying attention. I've got the radio playing, so we've got talking going on. Nah, I shouldn't have done that. No, let's... we'll ignore it. Sorry about that, I shouldn't have done that, but we'll continue. Sorry if it's a distraction. So, where were we? I am distracted by it. I'm lost now, I've lost it. Where was I? Oh, we were talking about the gas giants. So, Aries, Jupiter, sorry, is like a picture of God. It's like a picture of the sun as well. Jupiter is very much like the sun. Saturn is I'm sorry, I've messed this up now. I'm sorry, I cannot do it while there's talking going on, I'm sorry. I was just hoping the music would continue, but let's forget that worldly junk and let's continue in silence. You can probably hear me better now. I'm sorry about that little hiccup in the presentation there. Let's continue. So, Jupiter is like a picture of God, Jesus Christ upon the earth, the Lamb of God. And it's also the false prophet. That's like religion, the bad shepherd, the great churches, the Pope and all that. Saturn then is the image of the beast, idolatry in all its forms, TV, computer especially, images which have the illusion of life, which people worship in different ways, not just calling them God. That's not the only way you worship something. They're all made from the substance of the earth. You know, in old times they had statues, they worshipped statues, and by magic, by hypnotism, drugs and stuff, they were given the illusion of being alive and having power, so that people were tricked in many different ways. Uranus would represent the Antichrist in opposition to Christ. Represents the government, the Antichrist government, who slowly works his way into place. The liar. Neptune would be the beast, the appearance of Satan upon the earth. May possibly also represent the Nephilim, the fallen angels and all that, but we won't get into speculation. Serpent beings ruling the earth. So, and we also see this is like a great serpent, and this is the head, and these three are the body, and the head wants to take down the state, the mob, and the church, and turn it all into its control. So each of these arms then are being controlled by Satan, the beast, to carry out his agenda. So Jupiter, which has a lot more power than just appears on the surface, herds all the people around. And then Saturn dances in the background, providing the entertainment and the distraction, so people don't look at anything else. He says, look at me, and all eyes are on Saturn, while Uranus slowly creeps step by step, the totalitarian tiptoe, into position, and then Neptune carries out his ages-long agenda. It all falls into place for him. Okay, so in the beginning of creation then, the story begins here, and it goes around and then around again, and it goes on, but that's the edge of the paper. So in the beginning, the author writes his name, Sagittarius, And he has a little bit of spirit, so we have the Word and the Spirit is the author. The Word and the Spirit are like two hands God uses in creation. Issues forth the Spirit, speaks the Word into it, and creates all the things. Now we'll get more into that later. So the author writes his name first then. And then the story begins. As we see Scorpio and Mercury. Scorpio does the same thing as Mercury, setting himself above the king. As you'll notice that Scorpio is taking up the space of two houses, so that everybody else has to have less. He's saying me first, and he's literally pushing Sagittarius out of the way. And you'll notice he's putting great pressure upon the man and the woman, and the woman is collapsing and putting pressure on the man, and then the man of course puts pressure on God, blaming him for the whole thing. And the man and the woman together share the space of one house, just as man was all one in the beginning. And then, so they're together in one, then the woman is taken out of man, so there is this balance between the good and the evil. Getting ahead of myself there. The man and the woman, male and female. Woman is taken out of man. And the scales, Libra, obviously also represent the good and the evil. In the beginning, man is good and is neither good nor evil. Then Satan comes, so that man is divided into the good and the evil. And that's what he does in heaven. And we'll get back to this later. But because of this, God takes Satan into judgment. Now you'll notice, if we look back, so this scheme was laid on top of this. It goes like that. This was all built on day 4. This was all built on top of the creation. Yep. So if at any time we want to understand what's going on here, all we have to do is just peel back a layer and look at the foundation that it was built upon. So if we want to understand Mars, Capricorn, the goats, and find out why they aren't satisfying to God, because they're the ones, as Jesus said, the Lord, he said, the goats go on the left hand, the sheep go on the right hand, and the left hand go into destruction, the left hand go into destruction, the right hand go into life. And of course we'll see, that's a huge theme of this. In fact, that's what it's all about. Just as the solar system was all about me first, you first, so also the constellations are all about the right hand and the left hand. So then we peel back, if you want to understand then what's wrong. I mean, like Mars is very much like the Earth, so life exists in many places, and harsh environments upon the Earth. It can exist anywhere, virtually anywhere. Why not Mars? What's wrong with Mars? What's wrong with the goats? And thus, if we peel back the layer, we see what they were built upon, which was day 3 of creation, the plants. That's what they're built upon, the plants. So there was life. The fire was the pictures of the life, the planets, remember, everything, all the things that are done are under the sun, pictured in the planets, and everything else. Air, it's the birds of the air, the water, the fish of the water. But there are 2 life of earth. There's life upon the earth and the life which is in the earth. The life upon the earth, which is separate from the earth, is the one that's pleasing to God, to be his bride. But the goats, they're like the plants, you see. They're connected to the earth. They're chained to the earth. They're like, well, we'll see that soon when we look at the pictures. they won't let go to the earth. The things of the earth, like the flesh, they hold on to that. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Why that makes them unsuitable, because this scheme, this earth, is all going to pass away, and a new one's coming. So all the things of this earth are going to pass away. So if you love these things and you don't want to let go of these things, then you can't go higher. You're not free. You're in chains to the flesh, to the earth, and the things of the earth. Okay. So then we also see. So we've seen the picture of life is the fire on day 4, and just as the Word of God is a picture of God. Then the air and the water, the birds of the air and the fish of the water, they represent then the angels of heaven, who are then cast down to a place between heaven and earth. So God sits upon the heaven above all. The angels of heaven are his angels, and man is upon the earth. And then in between heaven and earth, there's then a lower heaven where Satan and his angels are cast down to. But Satan still has access to the heavens, as we see in Mercury, as we see in the book of Job, in order to carry out the purpose that God wants him to carry out. You know, Satan's using God, but God is using Satan in order to test man, because God's not going to teach him the evil. He's only going to tell them to do good, but he wants to see which they will do, the good or the evil. And that's what the test is all about. Life is purgatory. So as I say, we'll come back to that later. And then man man and woman together in one. Females taken out of man. Man lives in paradise with God in the beginning, and then history begins. Man sins, and this is as we go away from God. Now we're going to the time now is air, when remember, this represents the Spirit of God, if we peel back the layer. So God now, the Word of God, has not yet appeared upon the earth and is not found upon the earth. And as you'll notice, if you read the book of Genesis, that there's hardly anything in it at that point, you know, until Noah turns up. Nothing happens. You know, it's like thousands of years, a couple of thousand years, 1,500 years or something, and nothing happens. It's like Satan's controlling the world. Satan's taking everyone over. God is now in heaven, in theory. Atheism begins to rule. You know, God isn't seen upon the earth. He's ministering by his Spirit, but this is the dominance of the spirit of Satan, the prince of the power of the air, Satan. He's dominating because he sends the serpent, who is represented by the crab, who, like the scorpion, holds up the two claws, the two choices before mankind, the right hand or the left hand. Now God only says, do what is good, do not do what is evil. But Satan holds them both up. Now this is very important, because Satan doesn't just go, do evil, don't do good, even though that's what he wants. He tricks people as a deceiver, and he normally brings good. People already know the good that they should be doing, and they know they should be doing it, so, you know, they're always going to be doing some good, so he brings the good, but has a little bit of evil in it, a little bit of a seed of corruption, because a little bit of yeast goes throughout the whole dough and corrupts the whole dough. You know, and you'll see some crabs, like they have one giant claw and one little one, and thus he gradually shifts it over time so that the evil gets greater and the good gets smaller, you see. And that's how he deceives people, and you know, he's a deceiver. You've got to be careful of that. So he holds up the two, the right and the left, which divide the people into the good and the evil. And of course judgment comes upon mankind because of that. And nothing much else happens, so we won't get into that. Where are we? Yep. So then, sometime after the birth of Noah then, the Nephilim of course are filling the earth. And God decides to destroy it all. You know, the government now, everything is Antichrist now. The whole world has become corrupted, even his creation, it seems, has become corrupted. Man has been infected with something else, so that gods and well, giants and supermen, they're like the gods of the time. So God sends his flood to destroy them all. The water pours down upon them, but he saves Noah and he divides the people into the good and the evil. Then of course at the end of that, towards the end of there, as the people come back, then they all start becoming evil again, and they build this great tower, and God destroys it and then divides the people again, because together they become corrupted. And we'll see more about this later. This Gemini is an important sign. And then right at the end of the period, I don't think I've mentioned yet about the Sun Age. Gonna have to get into that. But right at the end of this period, God divides Jacob in Esau once again, before we go into the age of Taurus. Now, need to make an important point about that. So the Sun Age. When the sun was created, at this point, so remember, this is history going round. So God created the heavens and the earth, and before the first day he did this, and then on the first day he did that, and then the second day, and then it gets to the fourth day. So history, the story of the heavens and the earth, is at this point, and that's the thing that we are in. That's the thing that's travelling around. Yeah, that's the story, the great story, which is happening right now. So that's happening. So then at day 4, the sun is created here, not here, but here in his house, because this is the house of the sun. This is where the sun lives, and the sun represents God. God always begins here. So now the Sun Age has to do with the axial tilt of the earth, which is on a 26,000 year cycle. It's a combination of things, but in total it's just like basically a top wobbling, like as it spins, and that goes around, so that every year at the vernal equinox the sun appears in a slightly different place. So then throughout the ages the sun travels around. Now, at the beginning of history, around 4000 BC, and all these dates and everything are all meant to be just approximate. At the beginning of history, then, 4000 BC, the sun is here, because the story is on about a 14,000 year cycle, and the sun is on a 26,000 year cycle. So history is here when the sun is created, and the sun is created here, and the sun moves through about 3 signs, when history moves through about 5 signs. So they're on different cycles. So then at the beginning of history, the sun has reached this point here, just after the... I'm confused now. Here, just after the beginning of the age of Taurus. So I've lined that up along there so you can see. So this is the Earth age, this is the history that we experience. And this is the sun, the position of the sun in the heavens at the vernal equinox each year, 21st of March approximately, which is the beginning of the year of the Jewish year that God said as well. So, you know, God agrees with that position. So this is where the sun is throughout the ages. That's the house of the sun throughout the ages. So, and that's an important point, because the ancient astrologers then, especially after the flood, would have looked and says, you know, like, oh, the sun is in Taurus, but the sun wouldn't have begun in Taurus. Leo is the house of the sun. They had Leo as the house of the sun in their scheme as well, because it's the most obvious one. And it seems everything else was wrong. Like they said Cancer rule is the moon ruling at the right hand of the sun. But if the sun is like a person, like a king, then his left hand is Cancer and his right hand is Virgo. But the right hand of the scale is Virgo and the left hand is Scorpio, because that's an object. So, yeah, so they then looked back and thought, oh, they would have looked, you know, seen stuff from before the flood. They would have excavated and found stuff showing civilization before the flood, and they would have figured, you know, how old is this? And then they would look at their scheme that they believed in, and then they would say, oh, this must have been the golden age 10,000 years ago. But they had no idea, they were just guessing, you see. And this is, but they didn't even believe that was the beginning. Like, they believed it's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. Like, man's been around that long. You know, they reject the things of God. You know, atheism is nothing new. Atheism and, amazingly, the theory of evolution is nothing new either. It's pretty obvious, you know, people think about these things in ancient times. Especially if they want to reject God and reject the idea of his creation and his moral demands. And I might stop there. We're only halfway through history at this point. No, not even that. But I don't want to make each part too long. We're nearly at half an hour here, so I'll continue in the next section and carry on. And this is going to take a while, but we'll get there in the end. It's worth it, I promise you. This is good stuff. Okay, so if I can present it right, that is, it'll be all right. Okay, so this should be part 3 then, because remember the article was part 1. So part 4 to be continued.